to see how this is going on. And then you have school districts, like in Florida, there's a couple of cases. I was talking to a woman, January Littlejohn, the other day, who is suing her school district because they started her daughter on the road to gender transition and didn't tell the family. There's another family in Florida where they didn't know that their child was exploring gender identity at school until the child tried to kill herself in the bathroom at the school.
Well,
and then it turned out that they were having like secret gender identity. And the idea,
was Florida, right?
That was Florida.
Which precipitated the parental rights bill.
Right, where they clearly need it.
Yep.
You know, so you have a situation where educators and administrators think that it's their job to help children keep secrets from their parents because all parents are going to be abusers. And they even said in that one case in Florida, well, the family is Catholic, so they're automatically going to be abusive and non-understanding. And the father was like, what our religion teaches us to love our children. Like,
I kind of just feel like, you know, whether it's intentional or not, over the past several decades, there's been a major push for the precursor of transhumanism.
I think it's for sure
Yeah.
intentional. I find that if we're divided into subsects of classes in this species that we have the elite and the plebeians, which is everyone else. And it's really a class of elite, whatever you want to call them, where they are family tight. They are knit units to where they, like, the children run the business that the dad ran, and they're always in contact, and they're flying on their jets to see each other, and their kids know their parents. And then you got everybody else, man, and they're just letting the wild animals graze right now.
I just kind of realized something. You know, I used to make the joke that the future is going to be everybody with shaved heads wearing jumpsuits or giant, you know, cones over their bodies so that no one can tell. You know,
like
Harrison Bergeron or whatever.
Yeah. Harrison Bergeron.
And then I just realized why that's wrong. Because people are going to plug themselves into the neural linked metaverse, where you are just a gray blob. And everyone will then just be the same generic avatar.
I don't think they will be the same avatar. I think you get to pick your avatar. Oh, to start, yeah.
To start,
sure.
everyone's going to be the
yeah,
same.
For sure.
So it'll be the blank slate ideology.
And then you have to grind for your outfits and your stuff.
Here's the interesting thing about it, though. If you take every single human being and erase their minds, or if you do this, you take 1 million babies and you put them in the metaverse where they all start off as genderless, you know, jumpsuit wearing little humans, and they grow and develop, and then, you know, around the time they're 10 or whatever, it's like, now choose your gender, and they can just pick. I'll tell you this, you would find a massive correlation between biological sex and internal digital world gender. So they can, so if you take a kid and raise them in, you know, metaverse, I would be willing to bet there's like a 98% chance that kid would become a boy.
They would decide it, or they would be it.
What I'm saying is, if you take a child, a baby, and put them in the metaverse,
Right.
where they never experience the real world, and they have no gender, then at 12 years old, they go to school, you ask them, which gender would you choose? They would likely choose their biological sex.
The one they actually are.
Right.
Yeah.
So even in the metaverse,
They'd also really need to stretch out.
well, their brain is Neuralink. They wouldn't know if they're trapped in a body.
So they wouldn't even know that they have a body.
No. And so, I mean, they probably would. I think if we enter this transhumanist reality where everyone is a blank slate, everyone's born this way, you're gonna have 1 million babies. They're gonna grow up, and then you're gonna see a 98% correlation with biological sex of the physical world body and the chosen gender in the metaverse.
Is it? Oh, go ahead.
So, well, I was just going to say, look, because I'm far too hopeful to think this is the future for human beings, but also, even if you're right, there's only going to be a certain number of people that can afford to join you don't think, the metaverse?
Everybody's got a cell phone. It's only a matter of time. It'll start with the rich people, but then give it 10 years, and it's going to be a $20 metaverse pass.
And what about the people that are religious and are family connected in countries like India?
See, I actually working on it. Yeah, so I can't say too much, but it basically explores the idea that there are a lot of people who will not take Neuralink and a lot of people who want it. And what Ian mentioned is there's kind of divergence happening in these directions right now, where you're going to have a Homo cyberneticist or whatever, Homo cybernetic versus Homo sapien. And you're going to have a lot of people who are like, this is the real world, we have our family, we believe in God. It's interesting because we're now facing the real prospect of a divergence between the human species by choice almost, by ideology. So,
did you read Ian Forrester's The Machine Stops? So basically, that's what happens in that. It's like a little novella. I think he wrote it in like 1914 or something ridiculous like that. And basically, there's people in pods, and all of their information comes to them through this view screen, and there's a machine that they can ask to bring them food and whatever it is that they need. But this one guy reaches out to his mom, and the way that he has a mother is that the machine set her up with this guy, and they had a child, and then the child was taken to like a nursery pod where it was raised. But anyway, he reaches out to his mom, and he's like, I would really like to breathe some clean air. They live underground.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I saw a movie that was basically this. Maybe
Yeah. But
this
it's interesting because in the book, there is this one guy who's like, no, I'm not doing this. He was raised in that environment, and he comes to it on his own that he doesn't want to live like this. And he eventually makes it to the surface of the earth, where he dies from the poison air. But he
happy
tries.
ending.
He tries. I mean, it is kind of a happy ending because he's like, I made it.
He
I
liberates
see the
himself.
sun. I see,
Well,
And then he dies.
for everybody listening, maybe you guys, the audience is always really good at helping me out with this. There's a show. It might be Electric Dreams. Was it Electric Dreams? Is that what the show is called? But I watch all these different sci-fi anthology shows. It's a kid who lives in this, pod where he plays video games all day. And he's interacting with his mom in a text chat, and they just play platform video games and food is automatic. And then one day his pod breaks. He has no choice but to go outside where he thinks the air is toxic, but it's not. And then he goes to his mom and he knocks on the door and she's freaking out like, what is going on? Why is there a person here? It sounds very similar to the
yeah. I mean, it sounds similar. I think it's a similar theme in the literature.
I wonder if you're going to have like humans on Mars that are Neuralink, humans on Mars that aren't, humans on Earth that are Neuralink, humans on Earth that aren't. Then you'll have like 4 different species, and then they'll all go to war, and one of them will become the predominant species.
Would you do it? Would you Neuralink, Ian?
Yeah.
You would do it?
Some people are saying it was Electric
I've
Dreams.
been clearing my mind. I'm practicing meditation where you have no thought for like how I can have no thought for an hour. And the metaverse can be really important because they can be trying to read your thought. You got like the end of Ghostbusters. Don't think of anything. He thinks of the Marshmallow Man.
Right, he sure
Don't
does.
think of anything. You need a clear thought, or they're going to be controlling you.
So do you think then in this happy future that we're all looking at, that those in maybe authoritarian religious countries, will they be less likely to hook up?
I don't know about that. It's a great way to control the population. Yes. So they might just say, we'll create our own isolated Futureverse where everyone can, It depends on whether you think the people who run, do you think the people who lead Iran are actually religious or they have power and control?
Well, I think they're both.
Because then if it's just about power and control, they'll say whatever they have to and absolutely would adopt a metaverse-like system. If they're actually religious, they probably would resist. Depends on how religious or how they interpret it.
Oh yeah, there will be religions in the metaverse. It's not. It's like it becomes a religion.
You know the funniest
They'll
thing
worship
is,
like
you know, it'd be
a
hilarious.
golden calf.
It'd just be hilarious if we're actually in it right now.
What I think will happen is some people
just
will
don't
start. They'll start metaversing government, military, and then they'll see it's so powerful to be able to control the machines with your thoughts that even the most religious, zealous will start doing it because it's either that or die. Like, don't fall behind on the technology. It's a weapon. It can be used as a weapon for sure.
If we were in it right now, I don't think my children would be so rude.
But if you know, but I mean, you might not know. You just maybe we're the remnants of a post-apocalyptic civilization that destroyed the planet and purposefully chose to put us out in the Matrix so that we can live.
Oh, that's such a road to hell.
Crazy.
That whole thought process is, yeah, that's a spiral into a void.
I don't think we are. I just only because I have no evidence. I don't think we're not. I just don't think we are.
No, I agree with that, but I do think it really does feel like a correction. You've got people who jump from one cause to another. You see what Elon Musk tweeted? I support current things, the SPC meme, holding Ukrainian flags, all the other flags around it. And I'm like, that's a great point. I'm wondering what it is that has created this large group of millions of people who are mindless drones. Makes me wonder, what if? Well, I'll put it this way. I think those people are absolutely going to Neuralink and go into the metaverse and just live and march in lockstep. I also wonder if it's true that we are living in some kind of simulation. Maybe we're the people who are actually in the pods and they actually are NPCs.
Oh, the whole NPC thing. I watched that show Free Guy the other day. That
Yeah.
movie that my son was like, did you watch it? because I was telling him that I thought the whole NPC concept was really wild, and I was like, what if there's NPCs in real life? And he was like, yeah, I've been thinking about that. We should watch this movie. And I'm like, you're 11. You came up with this already.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think people can like go into NPC mode and then snap back out of it, and all of a sudden they have sentience again. They're like, oh my gosh. Sometimes I'll even wake up and be like, wow, what was I doing yesterday? I was in like a weird fog yesterday and today.
I don't know.
I had this weird thing during COVID where like it took me a little while to realize that this was going on. But, we were like locked down and couldn't go anywhere and everything was new. And I started to like just not want to move. I just didn't want to move at all. And then I realized like, oh, you have this weird idea that if you just stop moving, this whole thing will be over sooner.
Oh, we have a correction. Kyle Billing says the movie I was referring to was 2149 The Aftermath. I remember it.
I didn't want to write that down.
Yeah. It sounds basically like what we're talking about.
Yeah.
The air was poisonous and in the pod or whatever.
2149.
Yeah. You know what movie is also cool? Totally irrelevant. It's Time Trap. That movie's great.
Cool name.
Yeah.
You think people are in such a state of panic right now that they're just kind of like head down, wait for this all to end, wait for the whole war in Iraq to end, wait for the COVID to end, wait for
Russia,
all the pain,
the
all
world
the things I'm afraid of. Yeah, wait for the alien invasion that hasn't been false flagged on us yet to end.
Well, we really want things to end. Like as a culture, it seems like
I
we
don't,
are
but
really.
some people
No, I don't want things to end either. But like I feel like our culture is really veering us to just being like, and that's it. We burned ourselves out. That's it.
Enough
it's over.
gravity. Gravity hurts.
was
Let's
it-
end it.
Was it? I think Seamus came up with the joke. We were talking about what the future would be like, and he was like, "Wouldn't it be funny if it's like 200 years in the future and everything's just the same?" And some guy like gets in a time machine and goes to the future, and he comes out and everything was normal like it was when he left. And he's like, he asked someone what year it was, and they're like, "Oh, it's 22, and he's like, "But everything's the same." And they're like, "That was it. Like, that was all our ideas. We ran out. That was it. Nothing else after that. We kind of just, there's a bunch more McDonald's, but other than that, nothing real beyond the kiosk."
But it was
all
like
we
a
have.
Mike Judge movie.
For sure, they've talked about the end of the world for the millennium since the beginning of humanity. Someone's out there like, it's all coming to an end.
We're
This is it.
constantly obsessed with the end. There's this play, I think it's called American Dream. Maybe it's not, but it's by this playwright Len Jenkins, who's this New York playwright. And at the end of this wild romp, all of these characters are like, I don't care about philosophy. You tell me how it ends. I don't care about that.
I gotta be honest. I'm at the point where I'm like, I feel like we've reached a certain number of seasons of humanity, to where they're doing reruns.
Yep.
You know,
Kind of sucks.
yeah, it's just a repeat, and then it's just like, okay, it's like watching. I went and saw the Batman like this past weekend.
They call it The Batman. That's like what
Yeah.
the movie is called, The Batman.
But the Batman is like it's been around.
Yeah.
That phrase has been around for a long time. Yeah, there's like cartoons. There's a cartoon called The Batman. There's comics for that. But
If
that
I
was
could have any superpowers, it would be Batman. He's just rich. I'd
well,
be chill with that
actually, his
superpower.
superpower is defined as peak human because he's trained on the mountaintops and he's master of like jiu-jitsu, and he's also rich.
I would
But,
just really go with once we get the rich part.
But I digress.
Sorry.
That was a movie where I was, it starts off like pretty good and then slowly gets worse, but never ends. It just doesn't stop. It's like we've caught the bad guy, and I'm like, well, it's finally over. And there's an act 4, and I'm like, okay. And then they introduce a whole bunch of random plot elements, and I'm like, okay, at this point, and I feel like that movie was a great way to understand life in the past decade.
Oh, you
where it's
think
like-
it's over, and then it just keeps going. And gets worse.
Yeah. But more and more absurd.
Yeah.
Like we went from we've got a pandemic. Then we got a pandemic started. Get this. Let's recount the past
Yeah.
couple of years. A pandemic starts. All right. Everyone's like, we're shutting down. The president, who's Donald Trump, by the way, gets on TV and says we're going to be banning travel with Europe, and I'm sitting there with my friends, and we're like, whoa, it's getting serious. And then 2 months later, the biggest riots we've seen in 5 decades,
Right.
billions of dollars in damage, 30
Yeah.
plus dead, and I'm like, isn't a pandemic happening? And then we're like, whoa, back to the pandemic. And then I'm like, okay, that didn't end. Now intermittent in all of that is like escalation of civil war, people getting killed in the streets, and it's like, man, the more we see this stuff, the more it feels like the country's gonna collapse. And then all of a sudden, World War III starts.
Right.
It's just like, okay, it really feels like someone,
And you have the new president just goes ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I know the president's Joe Biden now. It's like we thought it was funny that Donald Trump was the president because he's like a TV reality star, and now we have Joe Biden, who is essentially a Mr. Magoo.
Yeah,
like,
he is
this
Mr. Magoo. He sits up there. You hardly says that. He like looks at you with his little squinty eyes, and then he whispers, you know, he yells. It's not gonna be World War III. We're not sending troops into Ukraine.
Have you guys seen the South Park episode where it turns out Earth is a reality show, and the aliens are just like, we're done with the show, so we're gonna blow the Earth up? It's like, 3,000 seasons, and we're just done.
That's a fun thing in sci-fi where the Earth is actually just totally irrelevant, and they're gonna pave it over for a highway, like in Hitchhikers and stuff. Yeah.
What do you think is going to be the next thing then when normal people get peeked into understanding that they're being massively lied to? So
I don't know how.
Neural net.
No. See, so because of what I do and I defend women's rights, and I'm used to the media peddling what I call lies about really important
What you call?
what are lies?
Factually lies.
And I'm kind of used to that. I'm used to our politicians going along with telling absolute silly lies about biological sex and what words mean. But then we had the pandemic, in which that sort of really propelled more lies and narratives, and really obvious, overt, kind of dishonest narratives. And now we've got the war in Ukraine, which, because of all these lies, I think people are finding it really difficult to believe anything that's being told by the mainstream media. And so where the hell next?
Well, on Thursday, I don't know if you saw this, the White House invited 30 TikTok stars to give them the propagandist lines about the war in Ukraine.
Is that like when
They
Biden
peddled
got
the whole-
Cardi B?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so they, what could be next? What could be next? I think actually we have a lot of stuff going on with voting rights. I wonder if that could be part of it. Like there's like, I don't know if you can get into all that.
Well,
That's a mess,
I don't
though.
think that's big enough. Like,
Yeah.
COVID was huge and engulfed everyone. Black Lives Matter was huge and engulfed everyone. Now World War III, whatever.
That'll engulf everyone.
So
Well, that will be the third
aliens?
thing, right?
That was my first thought, but I think it's too obvious now.
I think
You
Joe.
think it's too obvious? Like that's just not going to be the plot point because
We
well,
know
they
about
would just
talking
be
plasma.
too.
It's
Yeah.
just obvious.
Yeah, but not. It feels like, we live in a reality where someone is trying to keep people in. And it's just like, okay, regular human civilization wasn't working. Let's ramp things
The
up.
elite are trying to keep the plebs entertained.
Or it's, in 2016, the Large Hadron Collider fired up for the first time. Is that what happened right before Trump
Yeah,
got elected?
that
And
was
then
wild.
Now we're just in this crazy multiverse of madness. Doctor Strange is.
Maybe
That's
there'll be
sort of
a
an
clone of
interesting.
Biden.
What?
Imagine he's
A
cloned.
clone? Oh my goodness.
Like Dolly the sheep in the
Yeah.
UK. That didn't go well.
Well, I think
There's like 10 different Bidens. There's all different.
probably
Different
this
teeth.
Different war thing is going to keep ramping up, right?
What is?
Probably the war is going to keep ramping up.
The
and-
Ukraine thing?
Yeah.
I think
I don't know, I don't
think
see
we
that.
are headed towards hot war between NATO and Russia. for sure.
Yeah, I think
The-
that's what we're looking at.
Well, so let me give you guys a direct reference. I don't know if actually this is pretty short, but
Maybe we can send the TikToks.
here we go. So this is just a general update from Daily Mail. It's not going to be World War III. This is all a bluff. Democrats and Republicans ramp up demands to Biden to send Polish nuclear fighter jets to Ukraine because Putin is escalating every day. We also have Estonia, the first NATO country, formally through Parliament calling for a no-fly zone over Ukraine. Every day, we're inching closer and closer to some reason the U.S. or NATO has to be involved in this. And now we're getting these stories. On March 11th, ABC News reported that Russia was moving in with biochem suits. Why would they say that? Because they don't just come out outright and say, Russia fired a biological weapon. They say, remember last week when we saw the Russians wearing those biosuits? This is why. And now already NATO, some U.S. official has said, it's effectively, a red line, it's crossing the line. It's a red line for NATO. Vladimir Putin uses chemical weapons.
Well, Biden
what
said
time
that
is it?
last week. He said he was asked by reporters when he gave a speech on Friday, I think it was Friday, about what if Putin uses biological weapons, and Biden said there would be a severe approach. But we also have the White House saying that a biochemical weapons attack from Russia would be a false flag. They also talk about that. Ready? Yeah, they're talking about all kinds of stuff. It's very hard to, I mean, I cover the news every day. We don't cover a lot of like what's going on the ground in Ukraine at Post Millennial. We're not foreign policy experts, so we don't cover that. We cover what's going on in the U.S. about it. We cover what's going on in Canada about it. But like we're reading all of this stuff every day. We're trying to figure out what's going on, trying to understand it. And it gets more and more confusing all the time. It's like it's hard to know what's going on. We don't speak the language. It's very clear that you have two sides there that are very well versed in how to create propaganda wars. And they're doing